Hi, thanks so much for this opportunity to present. My name is Jamie Wagman, and I'm a professor of history and gender and women's studies at St. Mary's College in South Bend, Indiana. I'm presenting today a project titled Deconstructing Gender, a community partner collaboration. The LGBTQ Center of South Bend, Indiana, and the Gender and Women's Studies Department at St. Mary's College have collaborated from 2019 to 2024 to present an annual community Deconstructing Gender workshop. As the workshop has evolved, we have created themes for our audience: masculinities, intersectionalities, womanhood, and gender and politics. When we partnered with the local center, students enrolled in the experiential learning course Feminist Theory presented these workshops for two audiences. First, for an LGBTQ teen group, and then for the general public. Our collaborative partnership has led to powerful experiences for presenters and audience members, including making space for difficult conversations and experiencing aha moments when community members make connections with students. For 5 years, I had a partnership with H.R. Zhang, the executive director of the LGBTQ Center. Our partnership had been relationship dependent and relationship building. When we first met in 2019, we brainstormed how to work together, and we settled on building an assignment for students to engage with the public. HR knew that there would be an audience for a workshop. He said because only 7 years ago was the first time that I'd been introduced to the concept of non-binary. There'd have to be other people in the community with questions. For the student side, what a great opportunity to dive into this area of study with gender. It's relevant to the students. They want to understand how gender does and doesn't define them. HR made himself available for an introductory class at the center, a practice session, and for communication throughout the semester. We decided that a 75-minute program would allow students to interpret theories and apply them. Students form small groups through self-selection after discussing themes they wish to highlight. This helps students take some control of their learning. They work both in and outside of class to create original content. Students gain a substantive foundation in a broad range of feminist theoretical approaches, such as queer and gender theory, Black feminism, and transgender studies, in addition to new vocabulary for understanding the wide range of theories available to a gender studies scholar. This assignment asks that they situate texts for a lay audience eager to engage with ideas about gender. The workshop gives students a chance to apply feminist theories from Judith Butler, Kimberly Crenshaw, and Susan Stryker to examples from the media, history, current events, and personal experience. The workshop gives them a chance to apply their knowledge of theory, and I have found that since starting the workshop assignment, students retain knowledge of feminist theory better. I do exit interviews with graduating students, and they've time and time again mentioned that this workshop offers them a way to remember and retain feminist theory. Students work together to decide what examples to privilege and how to create engaging content that asks participants to share of themselves. Bell Hook's Teaching to Transgress taught that faculty and students must regard one another as whole people, striving for knowledge together beyond books, questioning the authoritarian, hierarchical model of pedagogy, learning how to live in the world and value each other's experience. She wrote of how engaged pedagogy emphasizes well-being, a place where both teachers and students can grow in the classroom together, and that the classroom does not belong more to a professor than to students, or to some students more than others. She worked to create a space where everyone has freedom to, quote, learn and grow without limits. Feminist collaborations can offer students this kind of freedom and growth. Hooks claim that feminist pedagogy must allow students to integrate learning with a passion of experience, fits within collaborative service learning partnerships that require teamwork, attention to detail, and creating community. The Deconstructing Gender workshop has helped offer both theoretical reading content and an assignment that allows teams to learn together. In teaching students about race, sexuality, gender, and class, Hooks noticed the discomfort it provoked. Students were compelled to think about values and actions of themselves, their families, their friends. But theory can be a healing place for both our students and community members. The learning objectives for this assignment are for our students to visit the LGBTQ Center as a class to learn about the center's mission and work within the community of South Bend. They discuss technology capacity at the center. They then work in groups to create a 75-minute workshop that uses PowerPoint to explain theory and features interactive elements to keep participants engaged. They are to define key concepts in their own words, making connection between theory and lived experiences. How do these authors articulate gender? How has gender been historically understood or socially constructed? How does it function? How do lived experiences frame our conceptions of gender? How does gender interact with social class, race, and sexual orientation? Content must include definitions of gender terminology, best practices, and workshop content that is active versus passive, such as role playing or guided discussion in breakout groups. Their presentation must provide an introduction, content, and time for questions. Finally, they present the workshop to their instructor, me, in addition to other gender and women's studies faculty members invited to the classroom for one day, and then to the LGBTQ Center Teen Support Group, and finally to the wider South Bend community that attends LGBTQ Center events. They receive feedback on the first two presentations. This assignment is summarized in the syllabus, and we spend 1 week in the semester reviewing our objectives and considering sources for building content. Students work together to use theoretical texts, but explain them in their own words. They identify key ideas and demonstrate knowledge of them, and they're graded based on clarity of arguments presented, strength of evidence, and engagement with their audience. The Deconstructing Gender workshop assignment provides space for self-reflection and feedback. During a practice session for our class, a panel of GWS faculty members offer feedback and constructive criticism to the students. Later, at the presentation for the teenagers, students receive immediate verbal feedback from teenagers and staff. Changes are made before the final workshop presentation. Opportunities to receive feedback from professionals in the field and from people younger than themselves can be quite rare in academia. Additionally, students give one another feedback, illustrating Paulo Freire's assertion in Pedagogy of the Oppressed that, quote, education must begin with the solution of the teacher-student contradiction by reconciling the poles of the contradiction so that both are simultaneously teachers and students, end quote. In 2023, the feedback we generated together included a request for a handout of helpful sources, which students provided. We also discussed how to present theoretical ideas with clarity, and this assignment helps move us away from a hierarchical model of teaching. Using bell hooks ideas about power sharing and inclusive learning helped frame the assignment. Hooks asks readers to rethink ways of knowing and to consider how we can share power and create inclusive learning environments. Hooks wrote, "It has been my experience that one way to build community in the classroom is to recognize the value of each individual voice." End quote. In our class, students had space to share research and their writing. They discussed research challenges with candor. They also equally expressed triumphs once they found valuable material. While students are never forced to disclose personal information, students and participants tended to expose vulnerability at the workshops. Students share stories and facts about themselves, thus encouraging the audience to share. Our workshop on mindful masculinity led to male identifying participants to share experiences growing up in an unhealthy masculine world. One student who identified as female commented on how that was a perspective she never considered. Scholar Patricia Hill Collins' theory of intellectual activism, confronting those who wield power within institutions while providing everyday people with truthful ideals to assist them, guides teaching and activism. HR has said that this collaboration had been a favorite activity for years. Quote, this collaboration is beneficial not only to the local LGBTQ plus community, but also for the students. The community gets an opportunity to have some education, but also conversation around gender and identity that goes beyond a 101 setting. He also witnessed impact on the community each year, mainly in anecdotes community members provided to him both during and after the workshop. He remembered one community member being particularly touched that the center created space to discuss and break down toxic gender scripts because, quote, that conversation had never existed in his everyday life. Students had been presenting on and interpreting experts on masculinity that year. St. Mary's alum Mads Hornak remembers a moment during the 2022 workshop when a teenager shared feeling isolated from family due to their non-binary identity. Mads immediately reciprocated those feelings, and the two discussed challenges of growing up non-binary. Mads shared their phone number, and the two chatted afterward. This workshop was the first time I was able to share my journey of gender and how I struggled with it, Mads said. It felt amazing being able to provide support and advice that helped me while navigating the norms pushed on assigned female at birth persons by our society. End quote. After the workshop, Mads began showing leadership in their major. Mads also said they better understood gender theory after having to translate academic jargon for lay audiences. In addition, students benefit from partnering with a nonprofit that they admire. Students, over time, have developed a relationship with the LGBTQ Center. They have returned for events, maintained a relationship with various staff members, and directed other students to this community resource. Maggie Dunn, who presented in 2022, said that the experience, quote, not only taught me how to be comfortable presenting and talking in front of strangers, but also helped me to further understand the theory of intersectionality. The best way to learn something is to teach it to other people. An alum from 2020, Hennessy Vasquez, says that the experience taught them, quote, how to practice public speaking skills, especially on a topic that is stigmatized and difficult to talk about. It really relates to the work I am doing now as a sexual assault advocate in Chicago. Several students expressed gratitude to staff members of the center for a collaborative educational experience. Challenges occur when student work is not even or not of high quality, and HR Young and I provide more feedback to the students in the classroom and also at the dress rehearsal. We see students improve their presentation after hearing from both their professor and an expert in the field. One year we wanted to see more content on trans experiences when students discussed womanhood, and they spent a final week before the last workshop researching and revising. Another challenge has been requiring students to go to the center outside of class, and we have worked together during the first week to iron out schedules and select dates and times that work for everyone. Finally, most recent challenges have had to do with local financial pressures for our community partner. In 2024, our department pivoted to collaborate with our college's own new LGBTQ center since the local center was going through financial difficulties. Additionally, national attacks on this discipline have escalated, and I imagine will continue to do so. Yet, as the National Women's Studies Association declares, this is who we've been, this is who we are, this is what we do, and we must remember that. Again, thank you so much for this opportunity to present today. I really appreciate being here.